It's another edition of PENSDOWN. This is where we sit with journalists, practicing or otherwise, and get to understand all that they go through or they went through in their line of duty. Majority of the issues journalists grapple with while trying to get the news remain unreported because they are not supposed to be participants in the news gathering enterprise. They are only supposed to be observers to paint the picture of what is happening to their audience. This Today I've been joined by another colleague who is a broadcast journalist currently working with City FM and City TV. Before his journalism career, he taught ICT, science, and mathematics at the primary school level. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in communication with specialization in public relations from the Ghana Institute of Journalism. He has other certificates in international organization management, which he did from some online platforms. He says he's simply passionate about news and its impact. He loves to travel to places, meet people, and explore different cultures through the lens of journalism. My guest today is Fred Duhoe. You're welcome, my brother.
Thank you very much, my brother.
I hope I got your name correct.
That was right. You were so right on point.
Fantastic. I'm always very careful about those things because names are very important.
Sure.
But you are a trained teacher. Why would you abandon the classroom for the microphone or the pen?
This question has come to me countless number of times, and I always have one answer to it, and the answer has always been passion. Okay. So if for nothing at all, the mere fact that when I was a kid, I have this love for radio, and then growing up, I had to start monitoring news, especially when the likes of Komla Duhoe, Ben Malo, and a host of others were, the men at the time when we were younger ones coming up. The way they go about their duty, holding public officers to account, and then question, them to probably answer questions. Those were some of the things that really moved me. And aside the fact that I am the type who wouldn't love to sit at one place, and the teaching profession comes with the fact that you would have to sit at one place, be with the kids, despite the fact that kids are some interesting characters to be with. But the mere fact that you would have to be at one place consistently over time, if it is going to take you 5 years, 6 years, you're still going to be in that same place. That is something that really, really pushed me to seek for further education, and then I have to switch to the field of journalism. Practically, that is.
They say the teacher's reward is in heaven. Does journalism pay?
Journalism pays intrinsically.
Okay.
Intrinsically, journalism pays intrinsically. That is inwardly. I don't know if you want to mention, if you ask the same question to another journalist, he may say, no, journalism does not pay. But I have two answers in that regard. I would say journalism pays inwardly, then journalism does also not pay looking at the fiscal rewards in terms of cash. In Ghana, let me confine our discussion to the boundaries of Ghana, or extending it to some countries within the West African sub-region. The first one, when I mentioned intrinsically, it basically has to do with the fact that for me, if I go to the field to tell a story, and that story makes or gains the national attention, it becomes a topical issue being discussed. and I know I am the source of that news, and it breaks so wide, I get such that kind of inward motivation, which
Mm.
is much more than money, which is
Okay.
much more than anything
Mm.
valuable than money. The mere fact that you go out to report on something and the authorities swiftly attend to it, then those who were previously or negatively impacted by the kind of problem you went to report on
Mm.
gets to know that your report, or when they drew your attention to that particular issue, you moved on it, you told the story, and it got the attention of the authorities, and something was done about it. I
Mm.
mean, the larger contribution to the number of people who would call you to say, oh, through your report, we got good drinking water. Through your report, we had, good access, roads.
Mm.
So those are the intrinsic values no amount of money can pay for.
Yeah.
So for me, when you say journalism, whether when you ask whether it pays or not, for me, I would say yes, it pays. So if I want to split how much of a value I am getting from journalism, I would say 70% for me in terms of inward rewards. That is
Mm.
the satisfaction I get when my report makes the impact that it deserves. Then 30% ordinarily would be allocated to the fact that we are not working basically or literally for working sake. We are working to
Mm.
put food on the table. We are
Yeah.
working so that hand can go to the mouth. So
Mm.
essentially, you can't rule out money entirely.
Yeah.
So the 30% of it would be money, which is totally not enough. So 30% for me, journalism doesn't pay. 70% inward, the impact you make, journalism pays.
Mm. Wow. But why did you choose to do electronic media instead of print or even, let's say, online?
The story has to, let me tell the story this way. I had a stint with the Finder newspaper at a certain
Okay.
point in time,
Mm. Mm.
and I kind of reported for this paper for at least 5 months,
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken,
Mm.
before I moved to Georgia.
Mm.
So comparatively, I would say um, the visuals or the audio visuals
Mm.
tell a story much more and in depth more
Mm.
than the print would do. The
Okay.
print is something that when you publish the story today, tomorrow readers are looking out for the next paper. But
Mm.
for the digital media,
Mm.
that is something that is on YouTube. People can make reference to it at any time. The
Mm.
audios are there, the videos are there. You have this facial interaction with people, and it is there and it's everlasting. Unlike the
Mm.
print, where assuming there is any disaster, kind of let's say flood, and it
Mm.
enters your room, no matter how you are even protective of some of your documents, some of them can even get lost in the flood.
Mm.
So, I mean, when you want to talk about relevance, yes, the
Mm.
newspapers are equally relevant and important. But when you want to talk of impact, for
Mm.
me, I would say the digital media is making much more of an impact because
Mm.
don't forget, social media has also come into the fray now, where the work of the journalist, I would say, is a bit threatened with
Mm.
the likes of citizen journalists all over the place.
Mm.
Okay, because you go to the newsroom uh, in recent times before a news breaks somewhere, the newspaper is looking at putting that news together, going to the printing press overnight and bringing it out the following morning. That is not the case with the digital media. The
Yeah.
digital media, the moment it breaks, quickly the news is out there. So it is moving with time. And I mentioned the fact that with the advent of social media threatening the work of traditional media, where citizen journalists get anything anywhere, they post it on social media. And now that is where we also feed in from, where we now go to social media frequently to see what is trending, what is making the news, what is happening elsewhere. Then we get them to bring it to the larger population, knowing very well that very few people can follow a social media handle, unlike a TV or a radio would have broadcast that news to the larger population out there.
Talking about social media, is it a benefit or a challenge to the traditional media or journalists for that matter?
I kind of think that we need to leverage on social media to even be more relevant. That is, if in the first place you are struggling to even be relevant in the first place, then you need to now strive to get deeper into social media, get more acquainted with the platform, and then be able to derive the benefit that it brings, because it has enormous benefits. I must put on record that social media has enormous benefits. The journalists won't be everywhere at every time, but the citizen, we would say, are almost everywhere. So if the thing is happening, let's say in the north, and a media house in Accra do not have a reporter there, obviously, when a citizen journalist puts such videos, say maybe it's an accident, a robbery incident, or some kind of murder case. If a citizen journalist puts it on social media, it only goes a long way to bridge that gap that ordinarily the journalist based in Accra would have, before the media outlet would think of, one, should we send a reporter to that community, which is going to cost money, which is going to cost, the risk factor, and a whole lot of things would have to be taken into consideration. But with the advent of citizen journalists who are making use of social media, I think they are only helping our way. They are not kind of a threat to us if you know the benefit they bring to us. You can only say it's becoming of a threat when, for instance, bloggers, those are the category of people that I would rather say are posing a threat to the traditional media or the journalist or the journalism field as a whole. Why do I mention bloggers? Bloggers because the public or the citizen finds it quite difficult to distinguish between who a journalist, a trained journalist is, and who a blogger is. And the mere fact that the blogger only takes interest in clicks, clickbaiting, where the one will just draw attention, draw eyeballs to their page, and not doing thorough work, going and verifying stories. The moment they see the thing, they won't even bother to call whoever posted it to find out if it's indeed true. And they are just making fake news becoming the order of the day. Disinformation becoming one of the things that people are struggling with as to whether to know whether a story that comes out is true or not. Bloggers are the ones that are unable to verify, to go a step further. So because the public or the citizen can't really tell who is a blogger and who is a journalist, and they feel everything online, so far as there's a link to it you can click and read, or it automatically means that it's coming from a media house. So they now lump all of us together and then lambast us when the bloggers go wrong. And that is where I find the threat. But for social media, it has great benefit to us as journalists, for which if we leverage on it, I think it will go a long way to make our work much easier.
There is a lot of attrition in the field of journalism. So many professionals are moving away. Some are going into public relations, others are also going into entirely different things. What, in your opinion, is accounting for this development?
Well, this is a very good question, and a very intriguing one, of course. I say so because we all enter various professions for various reasons. Okay, some of the teachers that taught you when you were in the primary school or when you were in SHS or in the university. I bet my last test was to say that some of them are still in the teaching field, despite the fact that that field is not really paying them much. Okay. So some would enter into certain professions basically for the love they have for it, for the passion they have for the field.
Yeah.
And some would also have the passion for it. They get there and realize that no, passion does not pay the electricity bills. Passion does not put food on the table.
That's
So
right.
they get there and they're like, hey, if this is the case, and looking at the responsibilities that comes to me on monthly basis or on daily basis, this field can't really put my
Sustain me.
bills or sustain you going into the future. And then they want to look for other alternatives. So, well, people are leaving the journalism field, one, because they are not getting satisfied with the monetary value. Two, because of the dangers that comes with it. And talk of the dangers, you would have to talk about the fact that we looking over our shoulders when reporting certain kind of stories where you are putting your life at risk. And at the end of the day, what is the benefit or what is the result that you want to achieve at the end of the day? If the result,
and for some of you who in times like this also will be reporting from floods, you'll be standing in the midst of running water and floods. You are not too sure what is running with the water, whether it's some stone that is coming your way or whatever it is.
Exactly the case. And like you rightly mentioned, about some few hours ago, a colleague of mine just reported on the news that a lady, I think 17 years old, here at Tesano in Accra, actually attempted getting her slippers that was being carried away by the flood. And she got stuck and died some few hours ago. So, assuming that was the journalist who eventually trying to bring the news to the public and ending his or her life just in the flood, an hour downpour, and here is a soul being lost. That should tell you the risk that comes with the job. Okay, so I mean, people are leaving the job for so many reasons, and some of these reasons are obvious because the work doesn't really pay, like I mentioned. But if you look beyond the fact that it's not all about the money and it's about making impact, you would want to stay a little bit longer to attain or achieve those goals before, even if you would want to leave, then maybe you are approaching your pension age where you feel that, okay, if you want to move into into another field of some consultancy, you'll be able to sustain your livelihood after age 60, then you may want to contemplate leaving the field. But journalism, I mean, a number of people have done the same job and they've made it in life, okay? So not, like they said, all the fingers are not equal. You don't expect me to enter journalism today and start driving the most luxurious car or getting the most beautiful home you can think of, or my children going to the best
the most expensive schools.
The most expensive schools. No, it's a step by step thing, okay? And life generally does not really come that rosy. You would have to go through the mill and be sure of success at the end. If you want to be so desperate for it, you may also not live to enjoy the benefit thereof. So sometimes it pays to wait. That is how come if you are in the field and you fail, you can still be there and achieve what you want to achieve the next 20 years to come. It's a matter of planning. If you plan and plan properly, you'll be able to achieve and live, I mean, a very decent life even when you retire after this job.
If we are to go back into time, 10 years, that is your current age minus 10 years, would you still choose journalism?
I would choose it any day.
Give me your reasons, if there are any reasons that, make it so obvious that for you, it will be journalism and none other.
So one, I don't want to say that I regretted going through the teaching field because I really do not have passion for teaching. But I mean, when you come from a background or a home where literally you are not well to do in terms of if your parents do not have the financial muscle to push you directly to the university, and they feel the most affordable tertiary education you can get at the time was for you to go through the teachers training college and then be independent. Then you begin to make your own decision. If not for my parents, I wouldn't have even stepped into the teaching field in the first place. So I would say I would choose journalism even 10 years back in the days. I would have exceeded where I am currently if I were practicing 10 years past, okay? Plus my experience about 5 to 6 years now in the field. That would have been about 15 years of practicing journalism. And you can tell me that I'll be practicing journalism for 15 good years and I won't achieve anything. Okay. But for me, I mentioned from the onset that I am the kind who wouldn't like to stay at one place. That is one. So the mere fact that with journalism, I am able to get to the office knowing and having it at the back of my mind that I'm not going to sit at the office and then be waiting for, okay, I mean, to be doing this kind of, how do you even mention it? The word is
assignments.
Not assignment necessarily, like sitting at one place and then doing stories. There is a
Armchair reports.
Armchair reports, okay, sitting at one place, not doing proper research and then just jumping on to anything and then reporting. I mean,
I lost your video. Sorry.
Yes, I just realized that.
Yeah.
So that would have been something that I wouldn't be pleased with. But the mere fact that I have it at the back of my mind that when I get to the office, there is something happening somewhere, and my editors will be like, "Hey, Fred, dash there quickly, check what is going on, probe and find out whom we can talk to." And the mere fact that I'm meeting new people every day, I mean, different people from different backgrounds, sharing ideas, interviewing people. I mean, that brings me some kind of joy, and that is me. So, well, I would choose journalism for the mere fact that I am not stagnant at a place. I am moving about and then meeting people. I mean, deriving joy from what I do. I mean, you can just imagine how frustrating it to be if you have to sit at one place the whole day, okay, without you doing anything. Then, not to talk of you doing that thing over and over again for 10 good years. So sometimes when I see some of my teachers who taught me in primary school, JHS, and they are still in the teaching field, I can only say that it takes passion for them to be where they are. So, I mean, that should answer the question. If I would choose it,
that's right.
I'll choose journalism any day.
How many more years do you want to go before you finally bow out of the profession?
I am estimating, well, it's not something I would even want to probably talk about in the period, but I mean, this is an open conversation.
Yeah.
So for me, if all things go well as planned, I am praying and believing God to work in the I mean, the international organization someday to come. Talk of the United Nations and its affiliates or its allied agencies. This kind of diplomacy. Those are some of the things that I mean excites my learning, like my mind. Okay, so I would want to practice for the next 5 to 10 years, and within that space of time, if God brings my way, I mean other opportunities from the field that I'm looking at beyond journalism, then I would go in for it. But aside that, if those opportunities do not come, I am still here and still going to make the little impact in my little way.
Is press freedom a reality in Ghana today?
It is. I say it with some kind of confidence
Okay.
that yes, there is press freedom
Okay.
comparatively. Okay, we
Yeah.
may be declining in the index. We
Mm.
may not be doing so well as far as the indicators are concerned, but look at other neighboring countries and you will come to that conclusion that indeed we are able to move about freely to do certain things that we are supposed to do. The only thing that I would say, in my opinion, that is affecting us is the fact that when we should have been doing much more than we are doing today. In other ways, we are not supposed to be praise singers for the government of the day.
That's right.
We are not supposed to be the spokesperson for the authorities we are supposed to hold accountable. So the mere fact that we would have to be looking over our shoulders to even file certain reports, that is where I have a bit of a challenge. But beyond that, and some of the excesses over the period where we've seen some journalists being murdered, some being threatened, and some would have to even flee this country. Aside those isolated cases, if you would want to go strictly speaking, where we want to say you would not be moving on the street and be a target, I would say press freedom is a reality. But it also boils down to the fact that maybe it's because we are not telling the kind of stories we would have to tell that would endanger us and make us feel a bit unsafe in our own country to tell the stories. So, assuming all journalists in this country want to pursue the dream of investigative journalism, okay, so I can't really compare myself right now to the likes of Manasseh Azuri Awuni, Emmanuel Dubevi, Anasari Miyawa and the likes, okay? Because I have not been able, and even though I have the courage, I would want to do an investigative piece. But you see, it boils down to the fact that it also involves much investment, okay? A whole lot of financing to be able to do the kind of things these guys do on daily basis. So if the likes of Manasseh Azuri and co could go and bring the most powerful, okay, hold them accountable and expose them. If you interview such a person, he will tell you how he feels threatened by the kind of stories he does. Okay, so the mere fact that I am not into that field yet, I would say generally, journalists like my kind who are going about their duty are kind of free to do whatever they want to do. But it also boils down to the regime that we operate under. You can't say same for previous governments where you would see journalists go do the same investigative piece and they were not threatened. But they've done the same today and they feel threatened. So it is a kind of 50-50 kind of balance that would have to draw as to whether journalists feel threatened or press freedom is under threat here and there. If you are going about your ordinary reporting, telling the flat stories, telling the no light stories, telling the community impact stories, telling the stories about roads that necessarily do not, that is what I call development journalism, where you want to pursue developmental stories and then draw attention of the authorities to it for them to be able to act on it. Those kind of stories do not really bring the eyeballs that we really wanted. But if you want to go a step further and say that, hey, this road was constructed 2 years ago, and just 2 years, the road has deteriorated so badly. I mean, who was this road contract awarded to? You want to dig further to find out who got the contract. On what terms and basis was the person chosen? How much was the contract sum? If you want to bring all this to reality, you may end up, that is where you would want to endanger your life to go the extra mile. And that is what we call the journalism proper.
So it all depends if you choose a path of developmental journalism, data and science journalism, investigative journalism, there are 1,001 fields we can all pursue. Not all of us will choose the same path, and all the risk reporting these various stories differ, and they all require various degrees of commitment and investment.
Should journalists be licensed?
100%.
Coming with your arguments.
So my argument would be that I was having this same conversation with BBC's reporter in Ghana, Thomas Nadi. Yes, quite recently, we were at the Togo border to do a report, and we were discussing this. And I even forgot to mention the fact that I actually stringed with the BBC during the 2020 elections. So yes, I did a little bit of work with them as well. But should journalists be licensed? Yes, I would say 100%. Why? Because I think just like the doctors would require license to practice, just like it has been introduced quite recently where teachers would have to be licensed, just like the pharmacists would have to be licensed. I mean, engineers, architects would have to be licensed to practice in certain jurisdictions. I mean, journalists should be no exception. And you see, journalism, we say journalism should be beyond borders. You should be able to practice across borders. If you have a license, it gives you that leverage to be able to even get recognized out of your own boundary, out of your own country. That is one benefit. So assuming you enter into Togo, you enter into Nigeria, Burkina Faso, or go beyond the sub-region into other European countries, talk of France and the Asian, jurisdiction. When you bring out an ID that shows that you are a licensed journalist from a country of repute like Ghana, I mean, it gives you that kind of opportunities. It opens doors for you. That is just one of it. Now, it also weeds out the miscreants, or would I say the unprofessional ones that over time they've not been helpful to the profession. Their actions and inactions contribute in one way or the other to the public not really trusting the work we are doing. In as much as a bad press or bad media in a country would have been much better than a dictatorship, I still believe that there is much more to be done. One would ask, how should we go about licensing journalists? I was making or advancing the argument that let's begin directly from the newsrooms. So before City as a journalist, I would have gone to City with my certificate to show that I have indeed acquired a degree or a diploma from an accredited journalism school. That is the very first step of it. Then City takes the next step to do an ID for you as a journalist, but with an indication at the bottom, accredited journalist. So if City gives you an ID written boldly on it, accredited journalist, Joy FM has an ID given to its staff as accredited journalist. Peace FM or UTV, they have. All the media houses in the country have ID cards for their workers, staff, and before you get this card, they would have done the underground checks to know that yes, you've really gone to the journalism school and you've gone through the mill and passed your exams. Then they indicate on your ID that this is an accredited journalist. So when you even invite someone for a program, to attend a program, for you to report on a program, you are sure that you are inviting an accredited journalist. So we are all hopeful that when your story comes out, it is coming from the right source. It is not just any kind of person that is putting it out there And when you want to invite journalists to your program, you have to check thoroughly to be sure that indeed you invited 10 journalists. All of them came with their ID cards with the accreditation on it that they are duly certified to work as journalists in the country. So in that case, you are not stifling press freedom. If you want to practice as a journalism or as a quack journalist, you can go about doing your own thing, but the public shouldn't take you serious, okay? Because if we have a register that spells out or lists almost everyone that is accredited, so City presents its list, its final list to the association, which is the Ghana Journalists Association, GJA. Joy FM does same, BBC does same. I mean, all the media houses does same. Then we now have a full register with the association, which is compiled, indicating that these are certified journalists, and it is online. Any organization or even any international journalist who want to come into this country to work with any local journalist would easily go to that resource to just type a name. Let's say, okay, I want to work on Galamsey. So the person searches Galamsey, the names pops up that, okay, so Fred did a story on Galamsey. Kofi also did a story on Galamsey. Amma also did a story on Galamsey. Now that journalist who is coming from an international media house now takes a step further. Okay, is Fred in the database of the Ghana Journalists Association? Okay, so yes, Fred is there. Now, is Fred certified, okay, to work? Yes, the certification badge is there for the person to see. It gives that person some level of confidence. When the person is coming to deal with you as a local journalist, you also take the pride in the fact that, yes, you are working on a project with France 24 journalists, with a BBC journalist, with an Al Jazeera journalist. And that gives us a step or the edge to go further or to advance very fast in this career. But a situation where we are all lumped up, and when there is some sort of lambasting that must come from the public to journalists, they say all journalists. Oh, journalists are not doing their work well. Journalists cannot even cross-check common things like names. Journalists cannot even confirm whether this person is the Minister for Education. I mean, so they now put all of us together. If a blogger does a mistake, they say journalist. When someone does something on social media, they say journalist. Okay, so I mean, certification of journalists or accreditation of journalists should go beyond the rhetoric. Let's go and let's get it done, and this will sanitize the industry.
My final question: the increasing political ownership of the media, is there a cause? Is there a cause to be concerned? Do we have a cause to worry?
Yes, we have. The politicians are taking advantage of the media space now. The politicians have now realized that the media space is a lucrative place or a haven where they can easily hide or go about their nefarious activities without getting noticed easily. So in that case, they are like going a step further to establish media houses that would clean their mess anytime they realize that they go out there to misappropriate, to cause some form of dissatisfaction from the public, and they know the public would come after them. They want a safety net or a safe haven where they can really run to be able to do their dirty works. So increasingly over time, the politicians have now realized that the media space is not an investment place for them. If someone tells you the politician, if someone tells you the politician is establishing a media house for the profit motive, I can tell you it's a lie. They are not establishing the media houses for any profit motive. I can cite an example where one of them being Kennedy Japan, okay, the MP for Asin North, okay, has a media house. He was on his own media platform to say that he has to dole out money from his own pocket monthly to even pay utility bills for his media house. If he's truly established a place for profit motive, that place would have been managed such that it will be able to pay for its own utility bills, it will be able to generate its revenue, pay its staff, and do a whole number of things. But there are media houses in this country that, whether there are money coming from advertisements or from other sources or from programming, they do not care. They know that at the end of the day, the owner has a motive. And that motive essentially is for that media house to be in existence. That is the primary objective, to be in existence, to be able to do its dirty works. And the mere fact that if they do not have the media houses to do their dirty work, the other media houses that are quite critical of what they do would jump at them, bring them to public ridicule, criticize them, and they feel that would have exposed them to the public, and the public will lose their trust in the eyes of the public. So they feel, oh no, if there is another media house that will be critical of us, my own media house should be able to give me the platform to also advance my cause. So politicians have over time realized that the only place they can go to be safe from public, public ridicule, public uproar, would have been to own a media house, for them to also sit on it, to be able to have a voice, to speak to a larger following that would also go to dilute whatever factual stories there are out there.
I will not be fair to you if I don't give you 2 minutes to talk about your foundation. You are impacting lives and you are affecting people who are in very deprived communities. Tell us about the foundation.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. The Lifters Foundation, as the name sounds, lift us. It's basically to lift the most vulnerable out of their predicaments. We cannot do it all. That is why we usually fall on donors or donor agencies to support us. And my greatest thanks goes to the Australian High Commissioner, who currently is supporting us to install solar projects or solar panels, solar lights on an island community that hitherto wouldn't get light at all in their entire life. What on that island that will make it lucrative or even economically reasonable for any government to extend light across the Volta River to that island. But for the timely intervention of the Australia High Commission and the Australia government, we've been able to extend solar lights to that community. And as we speak, they have light on that island. Meanwhile, I can't end this without mentioning the fact that politicians have found means to cross to that island to campaign. Politicians have gone there with ballot boxes for votes, but they are unable to extend light there. This is not to chastise them. It is because maybe they are handicapped in how to go about it. But thankfully, the Australia government came to our aid and we've been able to install lights over there. Beyond this solar light, the Lifters Foundation has, over the period, donated more than 20 wheelchairs to vulnerable, physically challenged persons who are unable to move from one place to the other. We've been able to aid their mobility for them to be able to be independent in a way so that they would be able to take that burden off their families. The immediate burden where they would have to be carried from one place to the other. When they have a wheelchair, it makes mobility a bit much easier. So our primary focus essentially is to focus on the physically challenged persons, providing them with wheelchairs. So we solicit for funding from the public, and I do that mostly through my social media followers, who I would have to thank at this moment for always donating towards this cause. Anytime I mention this fact that I need wheelchairs for 1 or 2 persons who can't really move and they need it urgently, I mean, they do come to our aid to donate, and then we buy wheelchairs for them. I want to thank you very much for this opportunity.
This has been PENSDOWN. We have had the company of my colleague, Fred Duhoe. He is a development journalist, and for him, he goes beyond reporting to ensure that he makes what he sees a burden on his heart, and then seeks assistance from people who can support so that he can cause a change in the life of the people. That is journalism that makes impact and leave imprint on the minds of people. We'll be back next time with another edition. Do stay with us. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. PENSDOWN is where we turn the CCTV camera on us and tell you all that you don't get to hear through the news. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.